On. Today's
Wait, wait,
session is
yeah, well,
dedicated to Shaya for joining us today, Big Schus. And this is basically going to be discussing, do we say Amen after the bracha of Gal Yisrael or not? So the Shulchan Aruch in Hilchos Kriyat Shema, this is a writing that I typed up, as you can tell, 10 years ago, shir that I gave then. So recap, the Shulchan Aruch says in Hilchos Kriyat Shema, Siman Samach Vav, Siv Zayin, that you do not say Amen after Gal Yisrael. It's an interruption. However, Ramah says that we do say Amen, and he says that's the custom. So basically, at the end of the day, we don't go like this, Ramah, and no one really says Amen. You don't see that anywhere. All right. The Chayyim says that this is a mistake. Okay, he's going on a yachid. Okay, so comes along Rabbi Yosef Cairo and his base Yosef over here. He goes into this more, if it's an interruption, not Darchei Moshe, earlier source, that's of course the Ramah. Prisha, I mean everyone is talking about this. They're going on another point. So it comes along the Magen Avram, and he says, nearly the im yurtza yuchul lechavin l'tzayim min hashas v'nein machuyev la'anois amin. And this is what the Mishnah Brura relates as well. If you want, you could finish your Gal Yisrael, Birchat Hashem Gal Yisrael, with the Chazan, and then you won't need to answer Amen. That's really what the Mishnah Brura is going to say as well. Machzis Shekel points out that we have a similar argument by Shema, by the bracha of Shema. We say Habocher b'mo Yisrael ba'ava. So do you answer Amen after that or not? Ramah says that you do, and there's some people who rely on the Ramah, but the Mishnah Brura also over there in Hilchos Kriyat Shema discusses that you say it with the chazan and then you don't need to answer Amen. You get out of this. Siman intensive dalit.
Chazan has to say it out loud, the Rav is saying.
Yes, and we're going to come back. We're going to see that more explicitly as well. That's correct. So we'll see about that more. The Prima Godim also goes into this more. Eliyarabba. I mean, everyone is talking about this major practical halacha which happens on a daily basis.
We're talking about.
Okay, they're all talking, man. Here, he says it over here, again. He says, finish with the chazan and don't answer amen. All right, this is the Eliyarabba also. So I'm gonna run the all going into all of this. Lavush goes into it. Everyone. You got every single person. Comes along the Mishnah Brura. Says some are precise. Yesh medaktikim sheroitzim lotzeis lekuli alma mamtinim b'sur Yisrael b'shir chadash l'kedei lanos aminacher shash v'kosvo achroinim. And he quotes everything that we just saw above. Achroinim say, quotes the Ali Rabba, the Prima Godim, Rabbi Kiva Eger, the Levushei Srad, the Chayyim. Bingu l'tfilo chamer yoyse. Between the bracha and of Gal Yisrael and Shemona Esrei is very stringent. The Osir lahafsik klal. Filu lano is kadosh kedusha. You can't interrupt at all over there. That's why you should wait by Shira Chadasha. You should say word for word with them. But Nachon says the Mishnah Berurah Yomer Mila b'Mila Kadesh Yisayim Hashas. You should say word for word with the Chazan of Gal Yisrael so that you finish the same time as the Chazan, in order that you won't need to answer Amen, because some say that you can't. All right?
I mean, but based on what you're saying, maybe then it would make sense to say it quietly because you're setting up a mixture for people like that they're gonna start answering.
Nah, we're gonna see others are gonna debunk that potential concern that you just mentioned. But nice try. The Mishnah Berurah also says the Chachila, preferably, you should start Shemona Esrei with the Chazan and the congregation together. Right. So then basically at the end, he says over here, Eitza Cheres Yesh V'Nachon, Las Tchilas Yizkul Mish Yechavin L'Saimi Meshas. This is what you want to do. It's clear from the Psak of the Mishnah Berurah. Chazan says it out loud, and you finish with the Chazan at the same time, and then you wouldn't be obligated to answer Amen. Or the Mishnah Berurah suggests another option, which is you start your Shemona Esrei a little bit before the Chazan. Okay, I'm going to mention it in a moment. He actually mentions that himself, so we can mention it right now. You start your Shemona Esrei slightly before. Pasuk Hashem says, there's no concern with that. They nikar klal hakdamal, so it's not recognizable that you started a few seconds early, even though there's a general prohibition of starting your Shemona Esrei before the congregation. Nevertheless, if it's just a few seconds, there wouldn't be a halachic issue with that. I remember when I was in yeshiva in Israel for a year. So I actually sat all the way in the front next to the Rosh Yeshiva Rabbi Ari Marcus, who actually you could buy his sefer now this year that he gave on halacha, well 24/7. You could actually get them in stores now. I have it, obviously, and I saw him many times by Shema. By Shema, Habocher b'mo Yisrael ba'ava. So there's also an argument over there. According to Shulchan Aruch, you shouldn't answer. I mean, according to the Rama, you should. There is already more lenient. It's not as stringent as by Gal Yisrael and Shemona Esrei. But what he would do is sometimes he wouldn't finish with the Chazan. He would just start Shema a few seconds early. So you could add the question over there doing that. I would like to voice my halachic concerns over what I've seen in Chabad. With sometimes what they do is they say Baruch Atah Hashem Habocher, and they don't even say the Bocher. They just go straight into Shema. They say that silently. So it's already enough of a problem with Klal Yisrael over here with saying Gal Yisrael silently, and now on top of that, they're trying to plug this into Shema also and apply it. Which I don't like it. And as we'll see, we're gonna now. I mean, we already saw really what you should do, and now we're gonna see the problems of saying it silently. Okay, from halachic sources, not just I'm not just making up things over here, which is always the case. I'm not making up anything. Okay. There's a Chsan Sofer on the Shulchan Aruch Chelik Beis Shar Tefillah, the end of Siman Yud. This is the son-in-law of the Chasam Sofer, Rabbi Shmuel ben David Tzvi Ehrenfeld. And he says, in some places, yeah, the Chazan would say Gal Yisrael silently. And he says, V'hula daisim in agnachoin mode. It's a correct custom. You should do this in all places so you don't get in a doubt. Okay. Again, I'm not just trying to present one side. This is a Chassan Sofer who says to say it silently. Chassan, son-in-law of the Chassam Sofer. Also the Yishay Yisrael, classic Sefer on Hilchos Tefillah, the red one, says, Ich nahagu etzel maran, Chazan ish, b'tziyum birchas gal Yisrael, Dish mekoymo shnahagan shashas mesayim tevet Yisrael b'sheket, Dish l'yisrach lanos, mishabur levo, it says, O tshuva hu minag yafa. Seems like the Chazan ish also likes such a custom. Also, the Das Noita, we're going to see major issues with this, and the Mishnah Berurah didn't suggest this. We're going to see the Das Noita, page 300, says, saying it silently, is that a mistaken custom? Gal Yisrael? You shouldn't do that. You should do it with the Chazan. Or is that a good custom and you should do that? Chaim Kanievsky said, also do it. Seems like in Bnei Brak they like that. So in the footnote, You say, wait a second, the Mishnah Berurah said the Mishnah Berurah didn't suggest this. However, he says the Chsan Sofer already says to do it. Also, the Sefer Darchei Chaim V'Shalom, Minchas Elazar would do this. He says, I heard from a Moshe Feinstein, this is what they did in a Lita. That's the Litvish.
Which way they would say it silently?
It seems like. The Sefer Baruch Shamar, that's the Aruch HaShulchan's son, Torah Tamima. He says that they would say it silently. However, he says it's not a proof from the Baruch Shamar because he writes over there, most Chazanim, and it's more correct to say this bracha silently in order that they won't have the ability to answer Amen. And because you need to do Smichas Kulatzila, go right into from the bracha of Gal Yisrael to Shona Esrei. They think that answering Amen is an interruption. It's based on a Beis Yosef. It's a Mikuf Yud Aleph, based on a Zohar. However, the Torah over there says explicitly that you need to answer Amen, and it's a mitzvah to answer Amen, and it's not an interruption, because the Gemara in Brachos Tav Tes says, whenever the rabbis established in Tefillah Tefillah Richter Dami, it's like a length in Tefillah. That's why we say Hashem Svasai Tiftach, and we're not concerned about a halachic interruption. And these opinions made it into Shulchan Aruch, into Mikuf Yud Aleph, Sif Aleph. Beis Yosef, based on the Zohar, says you don't answer Amen. Comes the Ramah and says that you do answer Amen. And he says I could be Machriya, could side, weigh in on this with the conclusion based on what the Magen Avram says. According to Sefer Knesses Gedola, whenever you have a Zohar arguing with the Gemara, we go after the Gemara. Also, the Rabbaz writes this explicitly in the Shilos and Shuvas Chilek Aleph Siman Mem Tes. So we see that what we're talking about over here is that you do need to answer Amen like the Gemara. Consequently, the Chazan needs to say this in a loud voice, and you need to answer Amen after him. So look at the Sefer Siach Tefillah. He has length about this. So he was asked another question. It looks, why are you allowed to cut the bracha off and end the rest of it silently? It looks like you're only saying half of a bracha. Like the Gemara in Sukkah and Lamed Chesed Beis discusses. So there's a problem over there. It looks like you're saying Shem Shemayim Levatala. So it's a bad situation over here. Wants to say, not necessarily. I do this in many places, and they weren't concerned about it. Yeah.
So are they saying, the people who say that you should not say the bracha out loud, are they saying don't even say Baruch Atah Hashem, just
No, you still do Baruch Atah Hashem also.
you say Baruch Atah Hashem?
Yeah.
And what about that part though that just said that it looks like you're saying half a bracha?
Yeah, they say at the end. It says it's fine.
Says it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now the Rivos Ephraim, Shilos and Chuvas, Chilukal Siman Ayin Aleph. So he says he saw from the Saidi Yeshudin. Says the custom is they say it silently, so they don't need to answer Amen. It's an old custom. Is what to rely on. Don't rebuke someone who does this. Says one of his friends wrote him a reason because you have different opinions over here. This could cause disturbances between Gal Yisrael and Tefillah. People are going to answer Amen. Some are going to start protesting over here. It's silent, whatever it is. So you do it silently, and then he quotes the Mishnah Berurah. And he says, since the Mishnah Berurah didn't bring the suggestion, so it's not fitting to do this. You shouldn't do it silently. Mishnah Berurah says either start your Shemona Esrei a few seconds before, or you say it with the Chazan. He says that's what you should do. Ashkenazim should go like the Ramah. They would actually answer Amen after Gal Yisrael. But you're just concerned and you want to try to cover everything. You go like the Mishnah Berurah and you finish it at the same exact time. Says another incredible point. The Chazan is up there to motzi other people. He's up there to cover other people's obligations, to say the brachos out loud and the tefillah. So now Chazan needs to say the whole, technically speaking, the Chazan needs to say the whole davening out loud. This is what Sfardim do. Right? Rather, the custom became, he says he doesn't really know why, that just the conclusion of brachas are said out loud. Right? So if you're going to say it silently, how do you call that being a Chazan? Up there to minimally say the conclusion of each bracha to follow up. Right? No part of davening was established with the Chazan to say silently except for the silent Shemona Esrei. Right?
It's hard.
Ashkenazim.
Because he doesn't say everything like
No,
that.
but he just says it was enacted to say the end of every single section out loud, especially the brachas. So where are you getting this from? Let's say you have someone who doesn't know how to say one of the brachas, he doesn't know how to daven properly. So could he say the ones that he knows by himself, and the chazan will cover him on the rest? Why not? Right? He says that could work. Someone only knows some of the brachas as it is, and he can listen to the chazan and he will fulfill his obligation with the other ones. Right? So nowadays, everyone pretty much daven Shemona Esrei themselves. We don't find people who aren't experts. And the main point of Chazaras Hashat, the repetition of Shemona Esrei, is really because of Kedusha and Modim Dirabanan. Modim Dirabanan. We'll both discuss this, this. So, brachas that he knows himself, he could say. All right? So you see from this that you can fulfill your obligation with some of it. I think there was a problem over there. So that's the story over here. So he wants to say the Riva Sefraim that you should be stringent, as in should not conclude it silently.
Then what does he say the Yachid should do?
Like the Mishnah Berurah, you say it along with the
like
Chazan. Yeah, that's what he says, like the Mishnah Berurah said. Right? Says like the Mishnah Berurah over here. That's his idea over here. And he says the Ein Makom Lesakish, the Davko Lishana is Minagi Yeshiva Shashas Pesach Galis Balachach. Okay. The Meir Rose also. Meir Rava. Chila Gimel. Pages 694 to 695 says nowadays if the chazan doesn't really fulfill the obligation of anyone, you do it silently. Doesn't need to be in a loud voice, and it's not considered ziluso, something that is a disgrace. Because you're doing it to get out of this argument if you answer amen or not. Right? That's what he wants to say. Same thing over here. Don't worry that now you're gonna prevent other people from answering amen. Because maybe he doesn't need to say them out loud. He's not fulfilling other people's obligation, as the Be'er Halacha discussed in Simin Nun Tes. So therefore, it could be fine. However, most Achronim argue on what we just saw. Shlomo Zalman Auerbach in the Halicha Shlomo Perek Zayin Os Yud Ches says that the Chazan should finish the Bracha of Gal Yisrael in a loud voice. Davar Halacha and Os Kaf Ches, it says over there, even though that most opinions, there's a lot of opinions about this. Nevertheless, since all the Achronim, they tried to find the tactic, Eitzah, suggestion or advice to fulfill all opinions regarding this, and they don't mention saying it silently. It's implied it's incorrect to do so. To do it silently. So it could be possible that when he said all of the Achronim, that means the earlier Achronim, and the Achronim on the page of the Shulchan Aruch. Nevertheless, if the tzibur is stringent, that he won't, that the Chazan shouldn't conclude the bracha in a loud voice, like many shuls, so then you could go like them. Yeah, big rally. In other words, if you think about it, no one on the page of the Shulchan Aruch really said you say this bracha silently. It says in the Orchos Halach over there, footnote 62, Shlomo Zalman Auerbach once told a bacher who came from a family that wanted to be chazan over there. He said you have to be careful with three things. Told him if you're going to be a chazan, number one, you say Gal Yisrael in a loud voice. Also say in a loud voice Kedusha and Modim. Right? Then he quotes the letter of Ben Rabbeinu Baruch, says that to say the bracha in a loud voice with the congregation. That's the custom in the Grosh Shul, in the neighbor of Shari Chesed. And then they would say that Rav Henkin wanted to nullify this custom, to say it in a low voice. And he got very upset about this. Look in the Shalos Tshuvos Edus Yisrael on page Kuf Nun Daled.
Wow.
This is actually talking about a famous thing. Rav Henkin wrote in his will that the bracha of Gal Yisrael should not be said silently. That's what he wrote in his will. So he was obviously very upset about this halachic issue over here. And he basically says that saying Gal Yisrael silently is not in accord, is not the halacha, because the rabbis enacted that the chazan should say in a loud voice from Yotzer or aka after Baruch Hu until Shemona Esrei, in order to fulfill someone's obligation who is not an expert. And even nowadays, when we're all experts, they made such an enactment. At least, minimally, the beginning of the bracha, it starts with the baruch and the end. So Rav Henkin was very upset about this. We also have another Rav Ephraim, Chilik Vav Simen Mem Beis, who says that if you didn't conclude the bracha of Gal Yisrael, or you already began Hashem Sfasai Tiftach, you would not answer Amen after the Chazan, right? So that's another idea. If you're a little behind by a few seconds, and you yourself didn't say Gal Yisrael, and the Chazan says Gal Yisrael, obviously you would not answer. That's something else to point out and contend with. And even if you finish equally with the Chazan, you're not obligated to answer Amen. So you just saying B'med Devar Mamurim, right? If you just analyze the situation over here, then you'll see that this shaila doesn't really come out, because in most scenarios there's really only four options, right? And it's only in one of the four options. If you finish before the chazan and you start your Shemona Esrei a few seconds before everyone else, that's fine. If you're going a little bit slower, so you're further behind, you didn't say Gal, so you don't answer Amen. If you finish with the chazan, you don't answer Amen. So this is only talking about if you finish the bracha like a few seconds before the chazan and you didn't start your Shemona Esrei yet. That's now when we have a major discussion over here.
So I don't understand, why does this happen? What is he doing? He's just standing there and waiting.
What is he doing?
Yeah, he finished his bracha. He can start Shemona Esrei. He's just kind of waiting.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh-huh.
So that's an amazing point, So in that case, the Ramah would say, and I don't think anyone goes like this, Ramah, that in that specific scenario, when you finish the bracha of Gal Yisrael and now you're waiting for the chazan, is that you would answer Amen. According to Shulchan Aruch, you wouldn't. It's an interruption. According to those who say you answer Amen. So okay, fine. So I think that was that was a good point. Then they're going into another point. If you're doing it by yourself, do you answer Amen after your own bracha? We don't need to focus on that. This is enough to focus on over here. Yeah. And then he says, we see furthermore that by all of the potential tactics that the Mishnah Berurah relates, he does not say that you should that the Chazan should say the bracha of Gal Yisrael silently, and he says that this is a later enactment to try to get out of the situation, but this doesn't even help, because if we're going to hold that answering Amen after Gal Yisrael right? If we're going to worry about those who say that you should answer Amen after Gal Yisrael, even if you say it silently, you still need to answer Amen. Just like the bracha of Shomer es Amo Yisrael La'ad. Mariv.
Finishes the Amen.
I think what he's saying is you might even need to answer after your own bracha.
Because God is something that's saying before that.
No, we don't really do that. No, we don't really do that. Yeah, that's what they're talking about over here. And if we're going to hold like Shulchan Aruch, and you don't answer Amen because it's prohibited,
It's right.
so you don't answer. Yeah, this is.
It's one of them.
Okay, he wants you to go like the Mishnah Berurah. He keeps repeating this idea, reiterating this idea. And it seems like in this tshuva, he retracted from what he said in the original tshuva, and his conclusion is that you should not say it silently. That's the point of this. This is in Chelik Vav. He says that later. Perhaps. Seems like he retracted from what he said. In the Koibitz Beis Alevi, this is the Shevet Alevi. David, you could tell Aaron recording his, who was it, a Zaidi or something? Yeah, his great-grandfather? Forgot. David, who is it? You remember?
Zaidi.
Zaidi. Okay, so recording is Zaidi. In Chelik Vav, page Chav Daled Osir Aleph, who says that in Shachris you should finish the Brach of Gal Yisrael, the Chazan, at the same time, or you should start saying Hashem Sasai Tiftach a little bit before, but he doesn't say to do it silently. And the Loy Havinicha, he didn't like it how many rabbis said to do it silently. Bada inze kavra bracha. It's an honor, respect to the bracha. Emes Yaakov Kamenetsky. He says in Siman Samach Vav in the Sefer on Shulchan Aruch, footnote 93, saying it silently, it's incorrect. That was an enactment. That the Chazan gets up there, he's got to say it out loud. Perhaps there's another tactic that we could do. How much longer is this thing? Okay. Well, we're going to finish it on time. Good. Because I want to leave time for discussion after. Because this is a political issue also. I'm saying it goes with the politics, with everything. People make a whole thing of it's a controversial,
Left, right.
No, not real politics, No. Here. He says, perhaps there's another suggestion. The Leket Hakemach Echodosh Chila Gimel, the Yaakov Katz, and Simon Samach Vav Sivkot and Lamed Gimel, was the Chedushe Rozah, who says that you should finish Gal Yisrael a little bit after the Chazan.
It's sort of like one of the three scenarios we mentioned.
No, this is different. This is not at the same time. This is a little bit after.
Right, we said
Yeah, the river voice, he entertained my possibility. But now he's saying to do this. Not just it happened to have occurred.
Yeah.
And he says there's a big. What?
You say even in this case,
Yeah.
you don't say.
Yeah, sure, you don't. And the reason for this custom is you gotta, this is actually a great point. When the Chazan says his bracha out loud, some people might be answering on that. Let's say you have someone who walks in to a minyan and he already davened or he's going to daven later. So he can now answer Amen after that. Right? Even though we saw that some people said it silently to get themselves out of the doubt. Why don't you grant the possibility to those who are there and who can answer that they should answer? Right? Why don't you just do that? Maybe because it's because of the general crowds of people who don't know what to do. And if they're going to listen to the bracha and not answer, the makom shay rashai od girusu, that's going to be worse. Maybe. What's the Satmar Rebbe would also do it in a loud voice. So, the Moshe Sternbach and the Shails and Chuvas Van Hagos Kelekal Simon Kofei says it's fitting to say it in a loud voice. Bar Lamed Hakal Loimer Yochid Imo. You should tell everyone there to say it with the Chazan, and they will gain. That this way you could say Tefillah B'Sibor. with the chazan. So that's the best tactic, as Ben Hagel says. That's what he says. What's the Mishnah Berurah? The Mishnah Berurah never said to do it silently. Mashma Nami Shahai Min Haga Zar Etzel. It's implied that this custom of saying it silently was foreign to the Mishnah Berurah. This is another point that we just saw. Other people could answer if they're not dominating that minion if you say it out loud as well. Now you can be mizaka the rabbin with that, so to say. He says, careful, definitely you should do it in a loud voice. It's not Achronim suggest that. Pages of Shulchan Aruch, like we saw. They say, Sunan Reish Adivov say, since there's an argument over here, do you do it between Gal Yisrael and Shemona Esrei, or is it prohibited? The opposites, therefore, you should do it. You should finish Gal Yisrael a little bit after the Chazan, or before the Chazan. Just say one or two words. Shemona Esrei before the Tzibur, not more. Okay, important point. Okay, right on schedule. Piskei Chuvas, Siman Samach Vav, Osiyud says, the custom is by the Ashkenazim not to answer Amen after Gal Yisrael. And on Shabbos, not during the week. That's why you never really see anyone doing this. He quotes who says this over here. It's correct based on the Zohar. The Magid Meshorim says that the angel told the Rabbi Yosef Cairo when he said not to answer. Amen. Stick with that. It's basically what he wants over here. Now, says to answer. It's not so clear though. What's many others who don't like that. And then he says, in order to get out of this, custom is for the chazan is to say it with the chazan to get out of these issues. Like we saw, even though many Rishonim say after Gal Yisrael you would answer Amen, even after your own bracha. So it was mentioned before. Nevertheless, it's not an obligation. We don't really do that except for B'nai B'rachman B'Shalom Amen. That's the only place we do it in benching. You could also start a little bit before or a little bit after, like we saw. Again, most of this is repetitious, just different sources over here. And those who are precise, Medaktikim Chadoshim. Some they do it silently. Many Gedolim do not like this custom to say Gal Yisrael silently. We don't find any source or root in earlier poskim. They said that it was a lack of honor for the bracha. Some of it is out loud, some of it is done silently, like we saw before. Also, you don't know now the congregation won't know the exact moment to start Shemona Esrei, right? Because they're not hearing the chazan, and therefore that's another halachic issue. And therefore, the main halacha will be for the congregation to say it with the chazan, or to do one of the tactics that we said before. This especially applies to the Vasikim minion. If they're going to do Gal Yisrael silently, Vasikim minion, usually only the chazan has the exact timing, the second of when to do the Vasikim minion. I mean, Vasikim is a topic in and of itself, but then lastly, the Minhag Yisrael Torah says, he writes all the different sides, and he says, he concludes, David Kamar Avid, David Kamar Avid, etc. He says at the end of the day, do whatever you want, as long as you have the right intention. That's what Minhag Yisrael Torah says. Conclusion, seems like these are my own writings from 10 years ago. It's good that the Chazan should say it in a loud voice, and other people should conclude with him, or they should begin Shemona Esrei a little bit before, they should conclude a little bit after, since many Achronim argue that the Chazan saying it silently, argue about this. It's good to do one of the other three options that we just suggested. Again, so recap is the Chazan says in a loud voice, you say it with him, you finish it a little bit before him, but you start your Shemona Esrei a few words, or you go a little bit slower than him, just for a few words. However, in a place where the custom is to say it silently, if you are Chazan, then Perhaps you should say silently. I probably wouldn't do it even if I was davening there.
Oh.
And there's another thing is that if you see and hear a certain chazan says it silently, don't go up to him and say, "What are you doing? You're doing wrong." There's what to rely on. But it seems like the general consensus is not to do it, and it's something that is brought only in recent poskim, and even so, the most recent don't say to.
But this game is also like.
Yep, everyone.
What about those who say, I heard people go Gal, Yisra, and then they just kind of like don't finish the
That's
word.
also that's kind of silently. That's probably not as bad, but you'll see me whenever I dive in chachas. You always I bedavka go louder on that part.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Stop,
I specifically go louder. Yeah. Anyways, all right. So that was all the covered Shaya. Maybe we hopefully to see more often. You took us out of Sphira today. You took us out of Sphira.
Oh, yeah, should I ask a question? What was it? Should I ask a
Send
question
me a
earlier?
text message like a half hour ago. Now an hour ago.
All right.
No.
All right. Have a wonderful day. We're about to get knocked out of this meeting.
Everyone should have a wonderful day.
All right. Keep up the good shagging.